On the edge of the silverwood forest, where whispers swirl like mist between the leaves, and the stars feel close enough to touch, Nyra, the girl with the power to become a mystical cat, was watching the moon rise. It had been many weeks since she'd first become Lunarune, the silver-furred feline with starlight in her paws, power in her bones, and magic in her voice. She had rescued her friends, befriended an ancient forest spirit, and since then patrolled the woods quietly. Lunarune watched over her village nightly, a guardian of dreams. But on this night, the moon shimmered differently. Instead of a steady, silver glow, it shimmered like rippling water. The stars above twitched like blinking eyes, and the moonstone pendant around her neck pulsed, warm and rhythmic. She hadn't shared the truth of her identity with anyone, so Nyra knelt behind a thick patch of brush and closed her eyes, waiting for the magic which quickly began to stir. The silver thread of moonlight pouring from her pendant pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. She clutched the moonstone pendant tightly, closed her eyes, and whispered, "Lunarune." Her body shimmered, her form shifted, ears sharpened, claws extended, fur swept over her limbs like a flood. Nyra was no more. She had once again become Lunarune. She climbed her favorite hill and perched atop a rock that allowed her pale blue eyes to survey a good distance in every direction. The forest looked normal, but was too quiet, as if it were holding its breath. As she watched, she felt a swelling of energy, a hum in the air like music without sound. And then the sky cracked. Not like thunder or lightning, it was like a jagged break shooting across a pane of glass. She'd heard forest magic before, deep and earthy, like root singing, but this was different. This magic vibrated and crackled. It smelled like sparks. She turned, eyes narrowing, and saw it. A tear, a shimmer, a rift. It floated just off the ground between two bent birch trees and spread upwards into the sky, pulsing softly like a heartbeat in the air. It created a thin, glowing seam that split the sky, purple and jagged. The hum continued to grow, and Lunarune felt it calling to her. Looking through the rift revealed a place that looked like her world, but different. Strangely shaped terrain flickered on the other side. It looked somehow more defined, digital in a sense. Pixelated light swirled in a cloud of cube-shaped dust that poured from the opening, and then Lunarune heard something. Her ears shot forward, but over the buzzing of the rift, she couldn't tell where it had come from. And then it came again, this time louder. It was a cry for help, distant, terrified, real, and it was coming from the other side. Yet another scream rang out, followed by the crash of glass and a not too distant explosion. Someone was in danger. The rational part of her said, "This can't be real. This is some kind of a glitch, a hallucination, a mirage." But her heart, the inner voice that served as her guide, knew better. Someone in there needed help, and no matter what that meant for Lunarune, her heart would not let her turn away from someone in need. With a final glance back at Silverwood Forest, Lunarune turned and ran. She sprinted towards the seam in the sky, the world shifting under her paws. The dirt, the bark, the stars, the smoke, the shape and texture of everything changed as she pressed further into the rift. Her moonstone glowed hot, then brighter, then everything was swallowed by a blinding light. The air on the other side was thick with danger. She landed in a field of grass under a low, full moon. Her feline senses caught everything. Fire in the distance, villagers running, and the acrid stench of witchcraft. She ran towards the chaos. A small village loomed ahead, walled with cobblestone and lit by torches. The sign above the arch read, "Welcome to Dawnlight." Beyond the entrance lay a village transformed into a battlefield. Homes were burning, crops trampled, and in the center of it all, floating just beyond the bell tower, was a figure in a dark, tattered cloak. The witch. She cackled as she threw a potion, which exploded in a cloud of green and purple smoke. One of the village's defense golems stumbled to the ground, limbs sizzling. Villagers screamed and scattered like chickens, hiding behind hay bales and broken fences. Lunarune crouched behind a woodpile, her pale blue eyes scanning the scene. The witch hadn't seen her yet. A good thing, because it gave her one chance for a surprise attack. With silent paws, she circled wide through garden beds, dodging falling beams and trailing vines. She paused beside a young villager, clutching a lantern, his face streaked with soot. "Don't worry," Lunarune whispered. "I'm here to help." The boy blinked. "Do you know Stone Warden?" he asked, with hope in his voice. "He usually comes when we're in trouble." Stone Warden, Lunarune thought. Who is that? But now wasn't the time for questions. Lunarune crept into an attack position, hiding just behind a barrel not too far from the witch. She knew she'd only have one chance to inflict a wound that could give her an advantage. She coiled her body up like a spring, felt the power of the pendant warm against her body, and Lunarune attacked. She sprang from her cover with a fierce yowl, claws glowing faintly under the moonlight. The witch spun just in time to put up a robe-covered arm in defense. Starlit claws tore into the enchanted fabric and cut a deep gash into the witch's arm. A blast of wind came from the witch's other hand, and it sent Lunarune flying into a clump of ferns a few feet away. The next few moments were a blur of chaos. The witch hurled potions and flung spells, but Lunarune dodged and weaved, darting through debris and smoke. She bounded off a rooftop and tackled the witch mid-incantation, sending them both tumbling into a sheep pen. They grappled for a moment, with the witch shrieking and Lunarune hissing, until Lunarune slashed the bottle from the witch's hand. It shattered harmlessly in the dirt. "Get out of this village," she growled, eyes glowing silver. The witch hissed something guttural and vanished in a puff of purple smoke, leaving behind only scorch marks and the smell of rot. For a moment, silence hung in the air. And then a chorus of cheers. Villagers emerged from hiding, clapping and whooping and patting Lunarune's fur with grateful hands. The defense golem, back on its feet, gave a grateful nod. Villagers brought whatever little gift they could find and laid them next to her with a heartfelt thank you. Later, as the village settled down, Lunarune stood on the edge of Dawnlight and looked up at the sky. She could feel it. The world was shifting. Evil was growing and danger was coming, but not tonight. Tonight she had been victorious and Dawnlight could sleep. As for tomorrow, there's no way of knowing what the next day will bring, but one thing was clear. There's a reason she'd been brought to this world. It was no accident. Lunarune knew that her powers were desperately needed here. So no matter what was coming, she would stay and fight, carrying hope in her claws, because she knew she had finally found where she belonged.